Hello, I'm Bruce DePoit. Coming up, our monthly one-on-one conversation with the Mayor of the District of Columbia, Vince Gray. Among our topics this time, firearms legislation now before the District Council. It comes in the wake of a judge's ruling striking down the city's existing gun laws. Will some citizens soon be allowed to carry pistols on the streets of the district? Also for you this time, the school boundary debate. The first redo of the city's school feeder patterns in 40 years gets a cool reception from the top mayoral candidates, casting an uncertain shadow over the process. And should the district and the rest of the region support the 2024 Olympic bid? Other Olympic host cities have seen costs soar and buildings not get done in time. But backers say this would be a tourism bonanza. We'll get the mayor's view.
From News Channel 8, this is NewsTalk with Bruce DePoit.
Hello, everybody. Welcome in on this Tuesday. Particularly glad to have you with us this time because our guest this edition of News Talk is D.C. Mayor Vince Gray. Mr. Gray with us every month for an hour of in-depth Q&A on important topics and your calls. Mr. Mayor, welcome back. Welcome back to the show.
Glad to be here.
Welcome back to the U.S. You've been abroad. You've been to China, and we'll talk about that in just a moment. A lot going on. I wanted to ask, and I wanted to begin, though, by expressing condolences about the loss of Carolyn Cross, a member of your team, really, a high-level person in the District of Columbia government, taken tragically and suddenly.
It was horrific, Bruce. Carolyn really has been hugely instrumental in working with our director, Tom Faust, working with our deputy mayor, Paul Quander, in bringing the Department of Corrections to where it is today. We've had, we had the maximum security facility accredited some 20 years ago, but this is the first time in the history of the department that the entire department was accredited. And Carolyn played an instrumental role in this. Just a horrific tragedy, senseless act on the part of someone. I certainly want to thank the law enforcement officials in Virginia for acting so quickly to capture this person, get him off the street. But we have lost a person who is an absolute stalwart, an outstanding professional who made an enormous contribution to criminal justice in the city.
It's not always easy to get good people to come into government. No. Carolyn Cross was the sort of person you liked having.
Absolutely. In fact, Carolyn had worked in corrections, and she left and went into the private sector, and she had actually worked with Deputy Mayor Quander in the past, and she was somebody who we really wanted to have back to be able to reform the areas of the Department of Corrections that we knew were that needed necessary attention. Mm-hmm. And she agreed to come back and has done an absolutely fantastic job. I feel so badly for her family. She has her children. I was at the funeral service this past week, and what a poignant moment it was to have to say goodbye to somebody so prematurely, and somebody who has done such a great job for the city and done a great job with her family. You
and the chief and the Attorney General and Phil Mendelson, the council chairman, spoke recently about legislation you're advancing that I don't think is in your heart to move. It's new gun legislation that would really create a new day for the district. Talk about the bill that the council is looking at as we speak. Yeah,
first of all, to put it in context, Bruce, we got this decision that came down and was referred to as the Palmer case back in July. It was a judge from Syracuse who was sitting in on our federal court here who rendered a decision that was not unlike that which had been rendered in other jurisdictions. It basically said that there were Second Amendment rights that permitted people to be able to not only have a gun at home, but also to be able to carry a weapon in public. And so we've been working, as the city did during Heller back in 2008, to make changes in our legislation that would allow people to be able to carry a weapon. We came to the conclusion that, with the debate about whether it should be concealed or whether it should be open carry, we finally concluded that concealed would be better because, seeing somebody walking down the street or walking into places with a gun openly displayed can be tremendously anxiety-producing and unnerving for folks, especially in the nation's capital. Which is, you know, a part of the issue, Bruce. This is the nation's capital. This is not, you know, some other city. You got foreign dignitaries who come here. You got our national leaders, our national legislative body. You got our president. You have so many things that go on in the nation's capital that would argue strongly for the strongest possible gun control laws.
Is it a given that the council will adopt this legislation, given, as I suspect and sort of presume, a lot of them will find the words on the page antithetical?
Well, it's not a given. You know, the vote is never over till it's over. But one of the things that's been very positive is that the Chairman Mendelson, the chairman of the relevant committee, Tommy Wells, and our administrations, our staff have been working closely together now for weeks to try to get to this point. It's one of the reasons why we had a press briefing last week to be able to talk about the provisions in the legislation and to communicate to people that, you know, while we are appealing, while we have a stay in place at this stage, that we really want to do the responsible thing.
There will be an appeal?
We've reserved our rights to appeal. We're working on that to see whether that's likely to prevail or not. But, you know, people have thought because we're working on this legislation, we've foregone the opportunity for an appeal. We haven't. We're reserving our rights with that while we work on the legislation to be able to move forward. The stay was for 90 days. We wanted 180 days, and we're still working on that. But the stay expires on October 22nd. Therefore, we felt the need to have something in front of the council today.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the specifics within the bill in terms of different types of weapons? What would be allowed, what wouldn't be, and to the extent that sensitive areas are envisioned, or that sensitive areas, geographic types of buildings and what have you, can you go into that a little bit? Yeah,
this doesn't permit shotguns and, you know, AK, you know, 47s and, you know, that kind of semi-automatic weaponry. This really is speaking specifically to pistols. And there are areas, Bruce, that are really off limits, you know, like schools or bars where people may be drinking. You don't want somebody in there with a gun, you know, legitimately in there with a gun, who, because they may have, you know, had too much to drink, may take actions that would be injurious or fatal, you know, to somebody else. Certainly not in government buildings. Again, not around schools and playgrounds and the like. So there will be a list of areas that will be off limits in the legislation.
And training.
And training is a big part of this. People will have to go through background checks as well. They will have to go through a period of training. They will have to go through an exercise in which they demonstrate they know how to use the gun. And people, frankly, who have a history of mental health problems over the last 5 years, or certainly are mentally ill now, will not be issued a license to carry a concealed weapon.
Given that, I mean, we know there are a lot of guns in the city, and the majority of them are illegal.
That's
and
right.
Some are in the hands of people who have committed crime or would commit a crime if the circumstance presented itself. Do you see any potential advantage to having law-abiding citizens with weapons who know how to operate the weapon safely and wish nothing bad on anyone, but could be there in a situation to, I don't know, to respond, I guess?
Well, there could be, you know, positive results from this, Bruce. I'm not one who feels strongly about that in the sense that it would be. I'm a strong gun control advocate and have been, you know, throughout my life. Some of it based on my own, you know, personal experiences. So I'm not excited about having guns in the hands of anybody more so than we have today. You know, it may be a deterrent. It may make people think who are carrying illegal guns or, you know, likely to walk into a grocery store to engage in a robbery. It may make them think twice about that because the person, you know, who they're about to rob may have a gun as well. I don't know. I don't know that we certainly don't want to, I don't want to exaggerate this, but we don't want any gunfights at the OK Corral, to say the least.
Have you, the last time you were here, we had a chance to talk about the situation in Ferguson. Have you and the chief talked, formally or informally, about body cameras and about whether funding for body cameras might be something to consider in the near future?
Yeah, we have.
For officers.
We have, Bruce. In fact, we are committed to having body cameras for officers, and we will be making an announcement in the next few weeks about body cameras, which obviously will create even greater transparency around law enforcement activity here in the city. So it is yet another tool that's available to us, and we are committed to beginning that process very soon.
Given I'm thinking about the council and I'm thinking about the bill, and I'm wondering, will you need 9 votes because this is emergency legislation?
Yes, it will have to be. There will have to be 9 votes.
And as former chairman, you've got vote counting in your DNA. It's something you do. I wonder if you got 5 members who said, I think we should appeal, and I'm going to vote no on this bill for now because I want to put the majority of our eggs in the appeal basket. Because is it fair to say that after Heller, the city thought that what didn't get struck down in Heller, that remaining portion was okay, and that if you appealed the recent ruling, here we're, Mr. Mayor, stand by for just a moment. We're watching the President of the United States walk to the cameras. He'll be talking to reporters in just a second, and you're going to hear his remarks regarding the first wave of U.S. airstrikes against ISIL in Syria, an important time as essentially the U.S. engages in significant military activity against a significant enemy. Let's listen now to the President.
Last night, on my orders, America's armed forces began strikes against ISIL targets in Syria. Today, the American people give thanks for the extraordinary service of our men and women in uniform, including the pilots who flew these missions with the courage and professionalism that we've come to expect from the finest military that the world's ever known. Earlier this month, I outlined for the American people our strategy to confront the threat posed by the terrorist group known as ISIL. I made clear that as part of this campaign, the United States would take action against targets in both Iraq and Syria, so that these terrorists can't find safe haven anywhere. I also made clear that America would act as part of a broad coalition, and that's exactly what we've done. We were joined in this action by our friends and partners, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, Jordan, Bahrain, and Qatar. America's proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with these nations on behalf of our common security. The strength of this coalition makes it clear to the world that this is not America's fight alone. Above all, the people and governments of the Middle East are rejecting ISIL and standing up for the peace and security that the people of the region and the world deserve. Meanwhile, we will move forward with our plan supported by bipartisan majorities in Congress to ramp up our effort to train and equip the Syrian opposition, who are the best counterweight to ISIL and the Assad regime. And more broadly, over 40 nations have offered to help in this comprehensive effort to confront this terrorist threat, to take out terrorist targets, to train and equip Iraqi and Syrian opposition fighters who are going up against ISIL on the ground, to cut off ISIL's financing, to counter its hateful ideology, and to stop the flow of fighters into and out of the region. Last night, we also took strikes to disrupt plotting against the United States and our allies by seasoned al-Qaeda operatives in Syria who are known as the Khorasan Group. And once again, it must be clear to anyone who would plot against America and try to do Americans harm that we will not tolerate safe havens for terrorists who threaten our people. I've spoken to leaders in Congress, and I'm pleased that there is bipartisan support for the actions that we're taking. America is always stronger when we stand united, and that unity sends a powerful message to the world that we will do what's necessary to defend our country. Over the next several days, I will have the opportunity to meet with Prime Minister Abadi of Iraq and with friends and allies at the United Nations to continue to building support for the coalition that is confronting this serious threat to our peace and security. The overall effort will take time. There will be challenges ahead, but we're going to do what's necessary to take the fight to this terrorist group, for the security of the country and the region, and for the entire world. Thanks. God bless our troops. God bless America.
President Obama speaking to reporters but not taking questions just hours after the first airstrikes by the U.S. and its coalition partners against ISIL in Syria. You heard the president describe what he believes is and will continue to be a broad coalition to take out ISIL targets, to train and equip Syrian opposition forces, and to cut off ISIL's financial pipeline, among other objectives. The president briefing reporters there on the south lawn of the White House in front of Marine One. Live coverage for you here on News Channel 8. We'll step aside for just a moment. When we come back, though, more of our conversation with and your phone calls for D.C. Mayor Vince Gray. That's all the time we have for right now. As always, though, the conversation continues online. News8newstalk.com is where you can find recent video clips from the program and our hour with the mayor. To get a first look at our guest list each morning, go to WJLA.com/alerts. And for news throughout the day, follow us on Twitter. We're back live 10 a.m. Wednesday with a new show. Hope you can join us. In the meantime, I'm Bruce DuPois. Thanks for watching. We welcome you back to the Tuesday edition of News Talk here on News Channel 8 alongside our special guest this time, D.C. Mayor Vince Gray. I'm Bruce DuPois. Thanks for being there. Let me belatedly, and thank you for indulging us while we took a little breaking news there in the last segment. Let me open the phone lines now so that if you have a question or a comment or a suggestion for the mayor, Vince Gray, you can join the conversation. We certainly hope you will. We like making this interactive. We love getting the calls going. So do join us at 703-387-1020, especially if you would like the mayor to make a prediction about the baseball postseason. I know he's chomping at the bit to do that.
That's right,
703-3, and we're going to talk about the Nationals, who I think magic number now 3 for best record in the National League, which would mean home field throughout.
They played phenomenally well.
703-387-1020, the number here. We'll go to the phones as your questions and comments come in. Can you reflect, Mr. Mayor, on the cool reception that the school boundary proposal from the administration and the chancellor, the mayoral candidates seemed to be holding it at arm's length a bit. It's the first time we've done this in 40 years.
It is.
Jack Evans was here yesterday. He and others saying this is overdue and something that needs doing for crowding and other reasons. Does the reluctance of Muriel Bowser, David Catania to embrace this cast a shadow?
I don't know. You don't want to turn this into just a political exercise, Bruce, and that's exactly why we've moved forward. You know, first of all, I want to really congratulate the advisory committee that worked on this, our Deputy Mayor, Abigail Smith, who did a fantastic job in leading this effort. We've been working on this now for almost a year, and it's been a thorough, engaging process. The committee and our staff have gone all across the community, working with town hall meetings, focus groups, eliciting input, having a number of drafts, changing the proposals each time it appeared that changes were necessary. And Bruce, frankly, I came to the conclusion at the end of that process that there were no real substantive issues that prevented us from going forward. You're absolutely right. It's been since 1968 since a comprehensive effort has been undertaken to look at school boundaries and school assignment in the District of Columbia. And frankly, no matter when you do it, today, 5 years, 10 years from now, there would be some issues that people would raise. But frankly, as I looked at it, I really felt that we had done enough work to be able to move forward. And frankly, some of that has been corroborated by a poll that was taken.
Is it incumbent upon those who don't like this plan to say what they would do, what tweaks they would make, or what different direction they would go in, given that there are schools that are super popular, if you will, and over capacity, and other schools that are so under capacity that on paper it cries out for a remedy?
Absolutely. I mean, what we're trying to do, one of the principles undergirding this is to have a by right system, so that if you live in a particular neighborhood, you will have an opportunity to be able to go to that school. And, a related corollary principle is to make sure we have high quality schools in every neighborhood across the District of Columbia. And what people need to, and increasingly people have understood this, there's flexibility in this. There's still out-of-boundary opportunities. There's grandfathering that will go on. This will be implemented over a period of years, Bruce, but it really is increasingly moving towards a commitment to having high-quality schools in every one of our neighborhoods, and that no matter where you live, you'll be able to go to a great school. Without the steps that we're taking now, I think we'd still be having this debate 10 years from now, and then we'd be at 50 years saying we haven't done anything about it.
Instead of 40. We're 6 or 7 weeks out. We've known who the candidates are going to be for a long time. There's been one debate. I know there are others scheduled. There's been one poll. Where do you think this race is? Should the citizens be satisfied with kind of, is this boring, this race so far? Is it underserving the electorate?
Well, there haven't been general elections in the past in the District of Columbia that were very exciting at all. I think one of the things that is so different this year is that the primary was so early, and that needs to be changed. We had the primary on April 1st. Heretofore, the primary has been held in September. That needs to be rethought, relooked at, because it's just too lengthy a period. And I think people now are weary of the process. We have a competitive race, obviously, for the general election, which is unusual for the city. But, as I go about the city, there is not a lot of enthusiasm at this stage for the race. There's a lot of work to be done in this city. I'm very proud of what we've been able to do with this administration, but we also have, things ahead of us that need to be done to keep our city moving forward. Bruce, we're a city that's growing by 1,000 to 1,200 people a month. We have a population of 660,000 at this stage, the largest since the 1970s. And we are, in so many ways, an exciting place to be.
Do you like one of the candidates more than the other?
I haven't taken a position.
I know people who people get hung up on endorsement and the E word. We don't have to use the E word. Is there one? I mean, someone's going to be mayor, and you're going to want someone to build on the progress. I mean,
I want to continue to listen. I want to listen to the debates and, hear what people have to say. And it's not, people think we have two candidates. We actually have three. We have, of course, Mr. Catania, we have Ms. Bowser, and we have Ms. Schwartz, who served on the council.
Did you and she must have overlapped at some point?
Oh yeah, we were on the council at the same time. And I've known Carol Schwartz for years. When she was on the Board of Education, I knew her. So You know, they've got an opportunity over the next debates to really to demonstrate really why he or she is the best candidate for the future of the District of Columbia. What I want to see is that each one of them articulates a vision for the future of the city, but not only articulate a vision, how then will you make it happen that that vision will be actualized?
Mr. Mayor, stand by for just a moment. Most of you will see more of our conversation with D.C. Mayor Vince Gray in just a moment. For those of you watching after dark, as always, we invite you to check out our blog. It's news8newstalk.com. Much more of the show online and next. Keep it here. Your phone calls too. Don't go away.